And we live. And we live. Hey, yo, peace be to the gods on earth. Jabez the light to Hootie Jah, most high priest of the mysteries, reincarnated in order to bring out this divine knowledge. You feel what I'm saying? So today what we're gonna be going in on is the occult origins of Jesus and Lucifer. Now, this is kind of it like a two-part lecture, which the second part of this lecture will be the occult science of Jesus and Lucifer, but that won't be until another day. You feel me? So as of right now, we're going in on the occult origins of Jesus and Lucifer. Shout out to all my people that's live on TikTok right now, that's watching me. If you want to see the full PowerPoint and read along with me and watch along with me, then tune into my YouTube channel and you'll be able to see that. You know what I'm saying? Jamin's the light. So without further ado, man, let's get it. Hold on. Without further ado, oh man, I'm excited. Let's get it. We won't just jump straight into it. Hold on. All right. All right, all my people on TikTok, let me know if y'all can hear me. Let me know if y'all can hear me, man. All right. And let's get into it, man. First slide. Now, the purpose and the goal of this presentation. The purpose and the goal of this presentation. Hold on, give me a second. Thing tweaking on my. All right. Okay. So the purpose and the goal of this presentation. Now, the purpose and the goal of this presentation is to give you the gnosis on Jesus or Satan. You feel me? Jesus and Satan, giving you the full gnosis on Jesus and Satan. Now, most of y'all probably looking at me like, gnosis, what does that mean? Gnosis is a term that comes from the ancient teachings of Gnosticism or the ancient philosophy of Gnosticism that came from our ancient ancestors. Gnosis means to know or true knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. You know what I'm saying? Right knowledge. As well as the purpose and the goal of this presentation is to end the ignorance and the spookism which has taken over the planet basically through religious fundamentalism. You feel me? Religious fundamentalism in the church who are just the church and the government who are the number one and number two biggest enemies to the masses of the population on this entire planet. You feel me? The church and the government, the two biggest enemies to the masses of the population on this planet who have successfully perpetuated a system of essentially mind control, essentially mental slavery, psychological warfare that was used in order to control the masses of the population through really their mentality by manipulating you mentally, manipulating you in a way that you live and your belief system, your knowledge about things, the way that our entire perceptions of life is manipulated based on the main weapons that they have, the three main weapons of the government and the church system being the media, the religion, and the education system. You feel what I'm saying? Like I said, one more time, the media, the education, and the religion are the three main weapons that are used against the masses of the population to promote a system of ignorance and spookism in your mind in order to the three main weapons that are used in order to influence the perception that you have of reality itself. Not only your perceptions of yourself, but the perceptions of reality itself. You feel what I'm saying that we have. Now, all my people that's watching me on TikTok, let me know if y'all can hear me good. You feel me? Somebody on TikTok asked me, so why are you calling yourself a priest? Because I'm the true priest. Now, what most people are used to going to church and seeing a priest talking about Hosanna, Hosanna in the highest, all that shit, all that goofy ass shit. Priest coming up on a church on a stage reading you a chapter out of the Bible, and then y'all niggas just singing songs and dancing the rest of the time. You feel me? No knowledge, not really getting no knowledge, not really getting anything. You just it's just the opium for you to take for the rest of your week, so you don't hate your life because of your 9 to 5 job type shit. You know what I'm saying? So I'm the true priest that comes to bring knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, and knowledge itself to the masses of the population, to the people. You feel me? And also, if you really want to know what a priest is, you're just gonna have to stay tuned for the rest of the lecture because I got something for you when it comes to that. Now let's continue, man. Now, and ignorance and spookism. Ignorance is a lack of knowledge or awareness. Ignorance doesn't necessarily mean stupidity. You feel me? Ignorance just means you either lack knowledge or you lack awareness on something. You feel me? And spookism is the spookism is the irrational fear of supernatural or spiritual things. And like I said, the key word here when it comes to spookism is irrational. We're conditioned and taught to have an irrational fear of things that are spiritual. You feel what I'm saying? When you was a child, you may have been scared of the dark because, you know what I'm saying, the mind of a child, you know what I'm saying, whatever. But when you were an adult, if you was to see an adult that said, "Oh no, I'm scared of the dark," you know what I'm saying, then you would look at them like, bruh, like this something gotta be wrong with you. There's something that gotta be wrong with your head. You feel what I'm saying? Now, that adult being scared of the dark is the same thing as spookism. That's an example of what spookism is, for lack of a better term, is you have this irrational fear of things based on plain and simply what somebody taught you. Somebody has taught you essentially to have an irrational fear of these things and are just this fear of all these different things. They put it into your head. This is what reality is. And this is what you should be afraid of and all that. You know what I'm saying? But let's continue, man. The basis for this presentation, part one. Now, the basis for this presentation is this: Jesus and Satan. The story of Jesus and Satan is an allegorical, mythological, and scientific story, symbolically explaining one's being a human being on earth, for lack of a better term, through their descent from the higher heavenly dimensions or levels of consciousness, and the instructions or guide on how to raise oneself up spiritually to attain spiritual enlightenment. You feel me? All of these mythological stories are, when you not only when you look at, say, Christianity, but when you even look at Hinduism and the Hindu mythologies that they have, the Kemetic mythologies, you know what I'm saying, the many different mythology, the Sumerian mythology, whatever it may be, all these different mythologies all around the world. Ultimately, the point of these mythologies is to raise your consciousness, to raise your consciousness up from a, say, the lower level of, say, a human who's just concerned with, like, if you were a man, like you just mainly concerned with getting money and getting as many women as you can. For example, if you're a woman, you mainly concerned with maybe getting money or shaking some ass. I don't really know what women concerned with, to be honest. But like, just this lower level of being a human where you eat, sleep, work, have sex, and go to sleep, and just do it all over again. Just this cycle of this lower animal impulses, lower animal instincts, just living that way. And I want you to understand that living your entire life just for the sake of getting money is an example of lower animal instincts. You feel what I'm saying? It's something that comes from your lower chakras, from that ego consciousness that you have. I gotta get the biggest house, the biggest car, you know what I'm saying, all this stuff. You never satisfied with, like, you feel me? Because you don't have that spiritual gnosis. You don't have that spiritual mind. So you always need something to fill up that. You know what I'm saying? I don't think I gotta speak too much on it. Let's continue. Now the basis part two, the tree of life. Okay. Now, if you watching me on YouTube right now, then you see I have the Kabbalah tree of life and the Kemetic tree of life pulled up. Now, when you compare the Kabbalah and the Kemetic tree of life side by side, you see they're essentially the same thing. And this is because the Kabbalah originates in Kemet, aka ancient Egypt. Kemet is the ancient name for Egypt. The Kabbalah or the tree of life is, like I said, it's a teaching that originates in Egypt. And what this teaching is about, to put it plain and simply in the simplest way I could, is you have a dark side and you have a light side. Now, all things that we see, all things that we perceive in this reality, they descend from the same one source. Everything, all things. Now, from that same one source, we have what you would call the dualities. Now, duality only exists on a certain level of your consciousness. For my people who are well along on the path, you'll understand what I mean by that. But duality is something that only exists to a certain level of your consciousness. Now, the tree of life shows you the dualities that there are within life, the light side and the dark side, the day side and the night side of your consciousness itself. All these different aspects that you see in as in the different sephiras or the different, if you look at the diagram, the different balls, they look like different balls or circle spears on the Kabbalah. All these are just different aspects of your consciousness, different planes of consciousness that we have within our own selves. You feel me? And at the very bottom, we see something called the kingdom or Malkuth. Malkuth is a representation of the physical dimension itself, of physical reality itself of Earth, what we call Earth, or the physical body. Now, when you look at the Kabbalah tree of life, then you see Malkuth is is the opposite from the crown or Kether. Now, the crown or Kether is what represents the logos, what represents the unknowable, that which has no name. You feel me? That which cannot be named, but that thing which can't be named, but that thing which gives names to all things. You feel what I'm saying? We call it, you can call it God or Jah or Allah. I think calling it anything is doing a disservice to that. And even referring to it as it or that is doing a disservice. So I think you feel what I'm saying. The all. That's like, I feel like that's the perfect way to put it. But it's not even just the all, it's the all, it's the nothing, and it's outside of all and it's outside of nothing. If your mind can conceive of that. But the crown and Kether, the crown or Kether and Malkuth are opposites to each other on the tree. This is a representation of you, your truth, yourself. Understand all these things are all parts of you. Is a representation of you, yourself, your God self. There's your God self, and then there's yourself here in the physical dimension or the physical reality. All of it is the same thing. But you must understand that based on where your mind is at, based on where your consciousness is at, based on what has been put into your mind, based on your experiences that you've had up until this point in your experience here on this place we call Earth, then you operate or you vibrate at a certain level in your mentality. You feel me? So, for example, the atheist person doesn't really believe in anything or think of anything outside of just what he can see with his senses, what he can perceive with his senses, based on just really is a certain level of consciousness that he's operating or vibrating at in his mind, in his very being. You feel me? Versus the yogi or the spiritual master, one of them, you know what I'm saying? Them niggas that be living in Tibet in the mountains and shit. You can give them some shrooms or some shit and nothing go happen to them because they so tapped in, they so to that higher level. You feel me? That nothing can fate. You know what I'm saying? Let's continue though. The basis of this lecture, part 3, evolution. Now, a caterpillar goes into a cocoon in order to come out a butterfly. Now, I'm taking this from Bobby Hemmett, low key. So all my people who know about Bobby Hemmett, you heard this before. A caterpillar goes into a butterfly. A caterpillar goes into a cocoon in order to come out a butterfly, right? A caterpillar does not go into a cocoon in order to become a caterpillar again. A caterpillar goes into a cocoon in order to go through a metamorphosis into a higher being or a higher state of being. You feel me? So inevitably, where are we headed to? What are we doing here on this planet? Are we just here just to just enjoy, just like have fun and just do like little mundane things on the planet? You feel what I'm saying? Nah. Ultimately, the entire point of our existence here on this planet is not only to experience, but the entire point of our existence here on this planet is to go from where we are to higher and higher levels of being, states of being. You feel me? An evolution process spiritually, because the only thing that is truly real is the spiritual. What you perceive as physical is only something that is created by the mind or by the spiritual. In reality, I'm gonna get into that in a minute. I'm gonna get into that in the next slide. Now, next slide, enlightenment. Okay. What one must understand is this. This is something that is taken from the Tibetan Book of the Dead. This is a good description of enlightenment. Enlightenment is the realization of the unreality of reality. You feel me? Enlightenment is the realization of the unreality of reality. Or another way to put it, and this is coming from my own words. Another way to put it is, plain and simply, enlightenment is the realization that this is dream world. This is Maya. This is the Matrix. You feel what I'm saying? This is whatever you want to call it. This is like dream world type of thing. As in, what I mean by that is this entire reality that we all find ourselves experiencing quite literally is like a figment of all of our imaginations from a higher consciousness, from a higher point of view. When you cut your finger and it get to bleeding and all that, it get to hurting and stuff, or when you be smashing, or when you whatever that you do, whatever sensation. Let's say you cut your finger and it hurt. What really is pain? Have you ever questioned what exactly is pain? What is a sensation? What is a feeling? Pain is simply just what you would call nerve signals. Something happens in your body and the body sends a message to the brain, yo, this is what happened. And the brain takes the message and creates what you call pain. But all of it happens basically instantaneously. You feel what I'm saying? If you didn't have nerves in your body, then there would be no such thing as pain. Do you understand what I'm saying? So, quite literally, you kind of have to question your entire perception of what reality is. What really is reality? Is reality just the different senses, your five senses, and just the different impulses that you pick up from your brain through your senses, through your eyes, your ears, your touch, you feel me, from your flesh? Is that what reality is? Or is it something much deeper than that? The yoga, I would say, the yogis would say, the spiritual masters would say that is something much deeper than that. And that this is dream world, this is Maya, as in everything that we perceive with our eyes, with our ears, with our taste, our smell, everything that we perceive is a construct of the mind. This is all something that is created by the mind itself. Even if you read a book called Holographic Universe by the author Michael Talbot, he goes in and he explains how quite literally this entire universe, this place that we call a universe, or Earth, is holographic. It doesn't actually exist. It's not something that's actually tangible, but we just perceive the illusion of tangibility. We perceive the illusion of sense. You feel what I'm saying? Or if you a person that done some shroomy doomies, you know what I'm saying? Then you probably already know this shit. Me, I never done none of that. I only smoked that ganja, but I meditate, so I'm tapped in like that just from meditation. So you feel me? But if you took the shroomy doomies, then and I can only go by what people have told me, then you've seen beyond the veil. You feel what I'm saying? You feel what I'm saying? But let's continue, man. Now, metaphysics, occult, and esoteric science. Now, what is metaphysics? Metaphysics is the study of that which is beyond physical reality and the physical senses. The occult is the hidden or esoteric, hidden, aka esoteric knowledge. Knowledge not popularly known to the masses. The study of the laws of nature and the universe, aka natural law. So, most of us, with our Christian training, with our religious training, whatever it may be, you taught to look at the occult as like some, oh my God, spooky, like some spooky shit, some ghosts or whatever. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Some spooky shit. In reality, all the occult is, plain and simply, is just the natural laws of the universe, the natural laws of earth, the natural laws of what we call this existence. That's all the occult is, literally. You know what I'm saying? And esoteric. Esoteric is that which is within, or the study of the unseen, the hidden aspects of things. You feel me? Just like how we all have a outer appearance, the esoteric aspect of yourself would be your mentality. Just like all of us, we have our own perceptions of who we are to ourselves. You know what I'm saying? When you're all alone by yourself and you're just with yourself, you have your own kind of perception of who you are, you know, versus everybody else in the world who sees you from outside looking in. They have their own perceptions of you based on what, how you express yourself, the things you say, the things you don't say, the things you do, the things you don't do, you know? You know what I'm saying? Let's continue though. Okay, true understanding and knowledge. Okay, if you see on the screen, I have a tree pulled up. All my people on TikTok, tune into my YouTube channel. You'll see the presentation on my YouTube right now as we speak. J Ben's the light. Now, on the screen, you see a tree pulled up, right? Now, why do I have a tree? True understanding and knowledge. What is the origins of the tree? The origins of the tree is in what you call the seed. The seed is planted into the earth, and the combination of the earth and the seed together, the earth brings out the inner potential of that seed, and that seed sprouts into what you call the tree. And within that tree seed, it sprouts its roots deep into the ground of the earth. You know what I'm saying? As well as sprouting outwards up into the air, all type of vegetation and branches and stuff like that. Now, why do I bring this up? Shout out Young Pharaoh. Why is this important? Why is this important? To understand reality, to understand ourselves, to understand really anything requires, or to understand anything at the highest levels requires one to go down to the root of that thing, the root of that thing, the origin of that thing. If a person has a disease, a certain sickness, and you want to get down to and you want to cure that sickness, in the Western healthcare and stuff, you kind of taught to just treat the symptoms. But if you go to Africa, if you go to the black people, if you go to the holistic doctors, they'll get down to the root of the sickness. They'll get down to the root, like how exactly is it that this all happened? How exactly is it you got diabetes or cancer or whatever disease that you may have? How exactly did this happen? It stemmed the root of it is in your lifestyle, what you're eating, what you're drinking, what you're listening to, the type of way that you're living in general, the type of lifestyle, the type of life that you're living, the type of thoughts that you're thinking. You know what I'm saying? All of these things come together and they create disease because disease originates in your mind. The seed of all disease is in the mind. You feel me? If you go to a holistic doctor, a person who is in tune like that, and is not just a person who's trying to profit off of sickness, but a person who actually is into curing sickness, then they'll tell you that the root of all disease originates in the mind. Let's continue. Now, the importance of history. History is the root of the present moment, meaning where we are here and now, right now as we speak, is the present moment. What you did 5 minutes ago, 5 hours ago, 5 weeks ago, 5 months ago, 5 years ago, is what you call history, the past. All of that you did, it inevitably led up to you being right here, right now, in the present moment, listening to this lecture, listening to the sound of my voice. Therefore, history is the root of the present moment. Now, here are some quotes by Elijah Muhammad. First, my people must be taught the knowledge of self. Then and only then will they be able to understand others and that which surrounds them. Anyone who does not have a knowledge of self is considered a victim of either amnesia or unconsciousness and is not very competent. The lack of knowledge of self is a prevailing condition among my people here in America. Gaining the knowledge of self makes us unite into a great unity. Knowledge of self makes you take on the great virtue of learning. Two more quotes by Elijah Muhammad. First, my people must be taught the knowledge of self. Self knowledge includes knowledge of one's own capabilities, character, feelings, or motivations, as well as one's history, physiology, and psychology. And the last one, knowledge of one's identity, oneself, community, nation, religion, and God is the true meaning of resurrection, while ignorance of it signifies hell. You see, the problem with the society or the world in which we live in today is that most people are very ignorant to things, to reality, because we have been given what Malcolm X and Elijah Muhammad called trick knowledge. Trick knowledge at the hands of one of the main weapons of the powers that be, being the government, the church, and the hidden hand behind those things, behind those entities, which is the education system that we have in America, or I don't really know about other parts of the world, but I know in America, the education system. The education system gives people wrong knowledge, trick knowledge. You feel what I'm saying? Manipulated truths or half truths and half lies. You know what I'm saying? And the thing about it is not only just that, but even most of the colleges, they give you certain type of mental training in the disguise of education. You feel me? And the thing about it is you go your life basing your life off of this trick knowledge. You feel me? And most people are taught this. And because you see most people are operating off of this trick knowledge, then that groupthink mentality comes in. The groupthink thing in your brain turns on. You know what I'm saying? And next thing you know, you like, oh shoot, if everybody's doing it, then that must be the thing. Nah, you feel me? Let's continue though. All right. Revolution is the solution. Matthew chapter 10, verse 34. Do not think that I have come to bring peace to the earth. Or Jesus said at Matthew chapter 10, oh shit. Matthew chapter 10, verse 34. Jesus said, do not think that I have come to bring peace to the earth. I have not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I have come to set a man against his father, and a daughter against her mother, and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. And a person's enemies will be those of his own household. Hosea chapter 4. My people are destroyed. Hosea chapter 4, verse 6. My people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. You feel me? So why do I bring up these two scriptures right here, right? Why do I bring up these two scriptures? The reason I bring up these two scriptures is plain and simply, one must understand that when it comes to the mass levels of ignorance that has been perpetuated in our own bloodlines, in our own households, in our own families, in the school system, in the society and whatnot, most people are operating off of what their predecessors have given to them. You feel me? The reason why most people is Christians or Muslims or different type of religions like that, 9 times out of 10 is because most of their people around them are that, raised them to be that way from the time that they was a child. When you was a baby, fresh out the womb, a week after you came out the womb, you was already getting baptized. You feel what I'm saying? You feel what I'm saying? So when it comes to people who seek the truth, who seek revolution, who are true truth seekers and do the knowledge, do the research, then anybody who does the research, they will find out about the great injustice that has happened on the planet. They will find out naturally about all the different lies and manipulated truths that we've been fed. And what happens to those people? You call these people like the black sheep of the family and whatnot. Because these are the people who see through the BS. They see through the bullshit. But what happens to those people as well? Most of the time, they go and they try and tell their friends and family about what they learn and stuff like that, and they get met with a cold hand, with a cold shoulder, whatever. Why? Because you must understand that you're fighting and wrestling against hundreds, even thousands of years of indoctrination and mental conditioning that has happened to our family members and the society as a whole. That's what you need to understand. That's the reality of the world that we live in today. You feel what I'm saying? And this is the part of the thing about becoming conscious or becoming, say, spiritual, conscious, whatever, is you come into the realization of this world, and you, like the movie They Live, you got the magic glasses on and you can't take them off. Once the magic glasses go on, you can't take them off. You feel me? So those magic glasses go on and you start to see everything. And when you start to see, then it's like, oh my God, it's like you realize you just I don't think I gotta go in more on it. Let's continue. Okay, now the modern day devil. We're gonna go in on the modern day devil, or the modern day perspective or perception on the devil. Now, the modern day religious groupthink mentality on the devil says Satan or the devil, Lucifer, whatever, is an evil, spooky entity that causes all suffering on earth and seeks to destroy and deceive man and keep us from God. And that the devil is bad and God or Jesus is good. You see what I'm saying? That's the religious groupthink mentality that people have. As well as the religious groupthink mentality in the current day is that all forms of mystical practices like what you call witchcraft, hoodoo, voodoo, astrology, numerology, channeling, necromancy, etc., is all evil and of the devil or against God. And if one does not repent of their sins and accept Jesus, then they are of Satan and will inevitably suffer for all eternity when they die. That's the modern day religious groupthink mentality that most people are under in this world that we find ourselves in. You feel me? So here's some questions to ask. And this is where we really gonna start going in on this lecture. Mind you, everything I said up until this far is just kind of like little context. What the fuck? Little context. Hold up, my fault. Fuck, nigga. Little context. All right, that's better. Okay, so here's some questions to ask. Some questions to ask. Number one, if this is what is believed and practiced today, then what are the origins of these beliefs and teachings? Question number two, what were the original teachings or understandings at the root? Question number three, prior to these teachings and beliefs existing, what were people doing? What did they believe in or understand? And question number four, what is the ultimate truth at the root? And if that truth is not in alignment with what is being practiced today, then how and why did we get to this point? You feel me? Now we get into the build. Let's get into the build, man. Let's get it. We're going to get into the build. All right, here's the build. Hold on. Now we're going to get into the build. The build part one, the veil of Isis. Quote, man, know thyself. That is a Kemetic quote written on the temples of Kemet or Egypt. Now the veil of Isis says this. This is another Kemetic or Egyptian proverb, another aspect of the mythology of Kemet. The veil of Isis. I am everything that has been, that is, and that shall be. And my veil no man hath raised. Isis is saying, I am everything that has been, that is, and that shall be. And my veil no man hath raised. Now, what does this mean? Now, Isis is the personification of nature itself. You feel me? Based on the Kemetic mythology. Now, what is a veil? A veil is something, whether it be a concept, a consciousness, a way of being, etc., that you think, quote, key word, that you think is one thing, but is actually something else entirely. But once again, it says the veil of Isis states, the veil of Isis is Isis saying, I am everything that has been, that is, and that shall be, and my veil no man hath raised. And once again, a veil is a concept, consciousness, way of being that you think is one thing, but is actually something else entirely. Understand, a veil has been put over the masses of the population based on the education, the religion, many different. Let's continue. Now, the veil of Isis in Islam, when you see Muslim women covering up the veil of Isis, you know what I'm saying, in Islam, you see Muslim women covering up and stuff like that. It's no coincidence they cover their entire body with with large veils. You know what I'm saying? Covering up who they are, covering up spiritually, esoterically saying they're covering up who they really are, type of thing, or concealing who and what they really are. You know what I'm saying? And you kind of have your own perception of what they are from the outside, but they're actually something else entirely on the inside. You know what I'm saying? Now, the build part two. Now, the build part two. Mystery system. The mystery system was God's school in ancient times where a person attended the school and became an initiate into the lesser and greater mysteries of nature. The curriculum of the mystery system. The several liberal arts, music, astronomy, cosmography, geography, astronomy, education of priests, anatomy, physiology, medicine, architecture, masonry, carpentry, engineering, sculpturing, agriculture, metallurgy, as well as the esoteric counterparts to all these different things. So quite literally, there was a mystery system in the ancient times, which was a system of schooling, which was meant to teach certain people today, you would call those certain people spiritual people, mystics, or conscious people about the mysteries of nature, the lesser and the greater mysteries of nature. Now, the lesser and the greater mysteries, right? The lesser mysteries are the exoteric aspects of the world, of self, of nature. Exoteric meaning knowledge of the material universe or history, etc. You know what I'm saying? Things like dates, for example, like your birthday. Your birthday is a certain date and a time. Your birthday is an example of exoteric knowledge. You know what I'm saying? So that will be an example of the lesser mysteries. Now, the greater mysteries are the esoteric counterpart. So the greater mysteries are the esoteric or the knowledge of metaphysical planes of existence, laws of nature, magic, mythology, occult sciences like astrology, numerology, alchemy, etc. You feel me? So, for example, exoteric knowledge will be your birthday. You were born on a certain day at a certain time. You know what I'm saying? Whatever. That's the exoteric. The esoteric aspect of your birthday of who you are is your what you would call your astrology birth chart. Your astrology birth chart, based on your birthday, will tell you essentially the blueprint of your soul. Biology is to the body, what astrology is to the soul. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? You feel me? So those would be the lesser and the greater mysteries. And here's a reading or an excerpt from The Secret Teachings of All Ages by Manly P. Hall, talking about the mystery systems. In all cities of the ancient world were temples for public worship and offering. In every community also were philosophers and mystics, deeply versed in nature's lore. These individuals were usually banded together, forming seclusive philosophic and religious schools. The more important of these groups were known as the mysteries. Many of the great minds of antiquity were initiated into these secret fraternities by strange and mysterious rites, some of which were extremely cruel. Alexander Wilder defines the mysteries as sacred dramas performed at stated periods. The most celebrated were those of Isis, Sabasis, Sybil, and Eleusis. After being admitted, the initiates were instructed in the secret wisdom which had been preserved for ages. You feel me? Let's continue. Mystery system continued. Okay, so this is taken from the book Stolen Legacy by George G.M. James, chapter 7. According to Herodotus, the Egyptian priests possessed supernatural powers, for they had been trained in the esoteric philosophy of the greater mysteries and were experts in magic. They had the power of controlling the minds of men, aka hypnosis, the power of predicting the future or prophecy, and a power over nature by giving commands in the name of the divinity and accomplishing great deeds. Now, when they say in the name of the divinity, part of that science is has to do with the understanding of multiple gods. You know what I'm saying? What you would call, what we've been educated to call polytheism, the multiple gods thing. But that's know what, I'm gonna go into it a little bit. So it goes like this. It's plain and simply like this. One must understand that the mind, who we are, the mind is made up of many different aspects to it. So the ancients, they looked at multiple gods not necessarily as actual real things, but more so different aspects of their own selves, different aspects of their own mind. Therefore, the ancients, being in tune with this science, they would utilize these different multiple gods as formulas, as mental formulas, in order to enact certain effects upon nature itself. You feel what I'm saying? Hey man, y'all not gonna get this nowhere else. You feel what I'm saying? You're not gonna get this nowhere else. You know what I mean? Like y'all can go tap into some. You know what? You know what the thing is? Only a black person can truly give you this knowledge. Nobody but black people can truly give you this type of knowledge. And the reason that nobody except a black person can give you this type of knowledge is because of the simple fact that all of this, at the root of it all, started with black people. All of this is within black people's direct experience in their genetic memory bank. You know what I'm saying? We the people that created these texts and created all of this shit historically in the ancient times. You feel what I'm saying? When you see some too, when you see non-black people talk about stuff like this, they kind of take the spirit out of it, low key. They take the source out of it. They take the spirit out of. They'll talk about spiritual things with no spirit. You feel me? They'll talk about spiritual things with no spirit to it, with no like. You know what I'm saying? Me, I understand, and it's not only just me speaking. The ancestors is with me right now too. I understand all of us, meaning not only who I look at as myself, my own individual consciousness, but the consciousness of my ancestors that are all within me. We created this. So the way I see it is this is my shit. It's all of our shit, but this is my shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I'm reading it and telling y'all about this from the perspective of, nigga, I created this shit. This is my shit. My ancient ancestors, who was just me, created this. And now I'm coming back in the future time to give niggas the understanding. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's continue though. Okay. So in order to understand the stories of Jesus and Satan and whatnot on a deep esoteric and occult level, one must understand the origins of Christianity. One must understand at the root level. Remember what I said about the root? One must understand where all of these things came from, where the religion came from, where the stories came from, where the even philosophy of all of this shit came from. Now, with that being said, the origins of Christianity, Gnosticism. Now, for those people who have not heard of Narcissism, Narcissism is a school of thought, a school of philosophy that preceded Christianity and what actually is considered to be the father of Christianity, because the Gnostic texts, whether it be the Gnostic Bible or the Nag Hammadi scriptures, were the scriptures that what we were the essentially the first drafts of what we call today's Bible. For example, if you look at the book of Matthew in the Bible versus the Gnostic Gospel of Thomas, and you compare them side by side, you would realize that the Gnostic Gospel of Thomas, which existed prior to the Bible existing, and the Gospel of Matthew in the Bible are essentially the same thing if you was to read them side by side. You know what I'm saying? If you was to put them side by side and read them, that's because the Gnostic Gospels, the Gnostic texts, were the original precursor text to what we call the Bible, as well as different Indian mythologies and whatnot, Kemetic mythologies and stuff. You feel me? Now, I have a couple different pages from the book Christianity Before Christ by John G. Jackson that I'm going to read on Gnosticism. The author John G. Jackson is a scholar, a very learned scholar on everything when it comes to Christianity, Gnosticism, Kemet, you know what I'm saying, all of that, and the history behind it all. And in these couple pages, he goes in on everything that, maybe not everything, but damn near everything that a person needs to know when it comes to Gnosticism, the origins of Gnosticism, the origins of Christianity, all that. So yeah, we're gonna get into it right now. Okay, so this is chapter 10 of the book Christianity Before Christ by John G. Jackson. Chapter 10, Gnosticism. Gnosticism flourished in Egypt and Western Asia between 250 BC and AD 400. It was a theosophic movement made up of elements of Egyptian mythology, Indian metaphysics, Judaism, and Greek philosophy. Gnosticism was overwhelmed by Christianity in the 4th century AD, but some of the lost Gnostic literature has been recovered, and I shall briefly consider it. The ancient Gnostics were those who knew just as the modern agnostics are those who do not know. Gnostics believed in a supreme God who was both unknown and unknowable. This unknown God was not the creator of the world. This task was delegated to lesser gods, who were emanations of the supreme God. These subordinate gods who created and governed the world were called aeons. Among the aeons were the logos, or the word, Sophia, or wisdom, and nous, or mind, phronesis, judgment, and dynamis, or power. All attributes of the supreme God, but existing separately. The supreme God and the aeons altogether form the pleroma, or the fullness of the Godhead. In the Gospel of St. John, the Logos or Word is identified with the Christ. The Gnostic influence among the primitive Christians was very strong. St. Paul, the apostle to the Gentiles, was Gnostic, as Rees has observed. It will be noticed that generally speaking, the earlier epistles show signs of Gnostic influence, while the latter show signs of anti-Gnostic bias. In the earlier, Christ is spoken of as a spiritual being who has always existed. This Christ spirit was in Paul himself, just as it had been in Jesus. Christ liveth in me. Galatians 2:20. A later Christian Gnostic main a later Christian Gnostic mains formed the sect known as the Manichaeans. The Manichaeans, according to Rees, believed that Jesus descended from heaven in the form of a man about 30 years of age. His body was illusory, as he was in reality a purely spiritual being. In the same way, the dove or Holy Spirit which descended upon him, or rather into him, at his baptism was also an illusion. Maines, the founder of this sect, described the virgin birth story as a fable which had grown up around the imaginary figure of this pre existing spirit Jesus, and drew attention to the fact that no first-hand witness gave evidence to its occurrence. A later form of Manichaean Gnosticism was established in the late 6th century of Mazdak, who combined his religious doctrine with socialism. Mazdakism is mentioned in chapter XLI of Gibbon's Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire, and Professor J.B. Bury appended in the following note as esoterical. We're going to skip all this shit. We're going to get back into the Gnosticism part. Matter of fact, let me not skip that. Its religious character distinguished Mazdakism from all modern socialistic theories. His doctrines were embraced by the ancient Gnostics, and Mazdak was enrolled by them with Thoth, Saturn, Zoroaster, Pythagoras, Epicurus, John, and Christ as teachers of the true Gnostic doctrines. Gibbon, History of the Decline of Fall, it's just the citation. Readers who wish more intelligence on Gnosticism should consult some of the works of G.R.S. Mead. For beginners, we recommend Fragments of a Faith Forgotten. For those with a background knowledge of comparative religion, it will be advisable to consult 3 books by G.R.S. Mead: The Pistis Sophia, A Gnostic Gospel, and Did Jesus Live 100 BC? And Thrice Great Hermes, reprinted in 3 volumes. After the Roman Emperor Constantine made the Christian religion the state religion of the empire, the remaining Gnostics were persecuted out of existence and their literature was destroyed. How and why Gnosticism was destroyed by organized Christianity is, as a rule, glossed over in history books. One American scholar has penned an accurate and colorful account of these episodes. Preceding Christianity, there was a school of science and philosophy which had accumulated practically all the knowledge and wisdom understandable to mankind. The object was to broadly educate the masses of the people by a unit system which would give to humanity a wisdom in common. This was the most potential period in human intellectual advancement the world has known. This school was called Gnosticism. Gnosis means to know or knowledge. Christianity means to believe or ignorance. These are the 2 schools, the one advocating the universal education of men, the other the universal ignorance of men. The one desired to develop the unit man, the other desired to suppress the unit and level all mankind to a common plastic mass. To accomplish this necessitated the suppressing of all extant knowledge, the closing of all the avenues through which people might acquire independent learning, education, and intellectual training, and a debasement of humanity in abject ignorance. The school which pitted itself against Gnosticism assumed the name Ecclesia. This name at once identified the purpose for which the organization was created to seize control of government, that it might exploit mankind for profit and for its own glorification. Temporal power was the church goal. The name ecclesia was derived from the Greek and signified the legislative body which governed ancient Athens long before Christianity was invented. The first essential act of the ecclesiast was to suppress Gnosticism and confiscate its vast accumulation of wisdom and knowledge in order to control the education of future generations in a manner to adjust mankind to its purposes. Therefore, the Gnostic wisdom was not wholly lost to the world, but its great universal educational system was supplanted. It is a well established historical fact, not denied by the church, that it required about 500 years to accomplish this submersion of Gnosticism and to degrade the new generations in ignorance equal to the state of imbecility. History again points its accusing finger at the living evidence. The horrible results of such a crime against nature and mankind are pictured in the Dark Ages. Not even priests or prelates were permitted to learn to read or write. Even bishops could barely spell out their Latin. During this period of mental darkness, the ignorant masses were trained in intolerance, bigotry, fanaticism, and superstitious fear of an invisible power secretly controlled by the church, all of which begat a state of hysteria and imbecility. Through this terrorism, Pope seized control of temporal power, retaining this control for nearly 500 years. They appointed and deposed kings at will. Hence, they dictated legislation to their ends and purposes, the very essence of government. This process of legislating evil into mankind is to vindicate that damnable doctrine of original sin, which slanders nature and insults all mankind. Originally, the motive was to confiscate the intellects of man, but the modern policy is much more concerned in confiscating their personal rights and property. Here is the other aspect of the suppression of Gnosticism. Its method of teaching was an understandable symbolism. It specifically recognized nature as the great teacher and visible things as the traditional records of past events, in progressive evolution from the lowest state to the highest, with thinking, reasoning man as the highest evoluted being. Man did not fall, he was raised up by a natural promotion. Hence, every man was a Gnostic to the extent of his accumulated knowledge and understanding. Thus, each unit man became a teacher, and all men were given equal rights in the acquirement of knowledge. It was wholly an educational system and a natural consequence in evolution. The ecclesiast, being thoroughly familiar with the Gnostic wisdom concerning astronomy, chemistry, and mathematics, as demonstrated by the splendid systems of Babylon, Egypt, and Assyria, conceived the idea of developing a religio-political form of universal government to control and exploit the future generations of people upon the earth through living, personified agents of the imaginary heavenly powers. To monopolize such a divine power as that contemplated it was necessary to personify nature, using the Gnostic symbol system of symbolisms, and to give to these holy imaginary beings names and functions. The Gnostic system had to be confiscated and Gnosticism suppressed to prevent exposure. This is why Christianity is so viciously antagonistic towards science and philosophy. All right, so that's the end of that chapter, chapter 10 of John G. Jackson's Christianity Before Christ, going in on Gnosticism. Where are you reading this from? I want to educate myself more on Gnosticism. I'm reading this from Christianity Before Christ by John G. Jackson. It was specifically chapter 10. But if you want to read more about Gnosticism, you should read the Gnostic Scriptures by Bentley Layton. That's a good book that has all the Gnostic scriptures in there, as well as the Gnostic Bible. You can find all these different things on the internet, um, as well as the 3 volumes of G.R.S. Mead's Thrice Great Hermes. I've only read 2 of them out of the 3, but those 3 volumes of Thrice Great Hermes by G.R.S. Mead, if you're a person that's really into knowledge and really into really knowing, then you're going to really enjoy those. Okay, so the bill part 3, mythology. Now, mythology is African science and was taught in the mystery system of ancient Kemet. Mythology is a telling of esoteric, metaphysical, and anatomical science through anthropomorphized and personified characters and locations. The Bible, Bhagavad Gita, Holy Quran, and the Vedic texts, etc., are all examples of mythology or science told in story form. So, once again, mythology was one of the subjects that was taught in the mystery systems of ancient Kemet. Mythology, one must understand, is a system of storytelling that is meant to allegorically, metaphorically tell you about yourself, about reality, about nature, about the spirit, about different aspects of nature, different lessons on life, different aspects of yourself, your anatomy, your body, your biology. That is the primary function of mythology, is to tell you about these things. But the problem in today's modern day is that based on us having a limited education, based on the school system, the educational system, which is public school, college, whatever, then you kind of have a perception that mythology is just some mythology is just like a cartoon or like an anime, like it's just some fairy tale, nothing. That's your perception of it based on our modern day education. But if you was to go back in time to your ancient past, to our ancient ancestors, mythology was literally how they taught people everything, how they taught people different things about life. You know what I'm saying? It was mythology was literally science. You know what I'm saying? And it still is today. So with that understanding, it's understanding that when you look at the different mythologies, whether it be the Hindu mythology and the many different mythologies that the Hindus have, the Kemetic mythology, whatever it may be, all these different things, these ancient texts, they're all telling you different aspects of self, of nature, of life, of how things came into being in an allegorical and metaphorical way. I know, for example, there's a mythology called the Laws of Manu. One of the Vedic texts is called the Laws of Manu. The Vedic texts are the Hindu spiritual texts. There's a Vedic text called the Laws of Manu, and I'm paraphrasing right now, but in the Laws of Manu, it was speaking about how the universe or existence came into being, how the universe came into being, and it said how the gods, what we call the gods, as in the ruling powers of the universe, they became the gods by performing austerities. So everything was one, but out of the oneness of all things, the oneness, the infinity of all things, there were certain aspects of infinity that performed austerities in order to become what we call the gods. So when you look at we look up what is an austerity, what are austerities, what does that mean? Austerities, that word austerities. Austerities is just strict disciplines that one puts themselves through, strict disciplines that are meant to refine oneself. So for example, an example of an austerity is fasting. You know what I'm saying? Fasting from food, for example, for a week, a month, even. That's an example of austerities. Or another example of an austerity is working out, fitness, like, you know what I'm saying? Fitness, where you put your body through certain disciplines, certain movements in order to become stronger, gain better balance, gain more endurance. You know what I'm saying? So in the laws of Manu, it said how the gods performed austerities in order to become the gods, strict disciplines. So it's the same thing in reality. In reality, you do things like meditation, or for example, you may do certain practices, certain yogic breathing practices, or yogic poses over long periods of time, long meditation, deep meditation, intense meditation, in order to raise your consciousness to levels that far exceed the natural or lower levels of consciousness that most people are at. All these things are austerities, different austerities that one does in order to raise oneself up to a higher level. So in that mythology, it's explaining to you, as above, so below. It's explaining to you exactly. Y'all know what I'm saying. I don't think I need to say much more. Let's continue. Now, mythology continued. Now, this is something that's taken from a book called Parallel Myths by J.F. Berlin. This is a passage taken from the book Parallel Myths by J.F. Berlin, talking about mythology. Now, this is an example of a mythology. Once there was only a great chaos known as Hundun. There were two emperors, Hu, the emperor of the northern sea, and Shu, the emperor of the southern sea. When they found Hundun, he was an incomplete being, lacking the seven orifices necessary for sight, hearing, eating, and speech, breathing, smell, reproduction, and elimination. So, zapping him with thunderbolts, they bored one of these orifices every day for 7 days. Finally, Hundun died in the process. The names Hu and Shu combined to form the word Hushu, or lightning. Thus, the work of creation began when lightning pierced chaos. You feel me? That's an example of mythology. Now, continuing to read from Parallel Myths. This is taken from their book, Parallel Myths. On first reading, the Chinese myth sounds quite primitive. It is anthropomorphic, that is to say, the characters are natural forces personified. The two elements that form lightning are referred to as emperors, and chaos is portrayed in human form. This primitive myth, however, converges with advanced and sophisticated speculations on the origins of life. This becomes our first clue as to what myth is. It is the earliest form of science, speculation on how the world came into being. To the man on the street, however, the word myth brings to mind lies, fables, or widely believed falsehoods. On the nightly news, a health expert speaks of the need to eliminate commonly held myths about AIDS. In this context, myth is used to mean a misconception. In this case, even a dangerous misconception. But myth, in the sense that we use it in this book, often stands for truth. A myth is often something that only begins to work where our own five senses end. If myth were only a collection of stories or falsehoods, why then does it continue to fascinate us? Why has myth persisted for centuries? As we shall see, a single definition of myth is never adequate. It is many things operating at many levels. As we have seen, myth is the first fumbling attempt to explain how things happen, the ancestor of science. It is also the attempt to explain why things happen, the spirit of religion and philosophy. It is a history of prehistory, telling us what might have happened before written history. It is the earliest form of literature, often oral literature. It told ancient people who they were and the right way to live. Myth was and still is the basis of morality, governments, and national identity. Myth is hardly the sole property of the primitive, pre scientific mind. Our lives today are saturated with myth, its symbols, language, and content, all of which are part of our common heritage as human beings. Fables, fairy tales, literature, epics, tales told around campfires, and the scriptures of great religions are all packages of myth that transcend time, place, and culture. Individual myths themselves are strikingly similar between cultures vastly separated by geography. This commonality helps us to recognize the beauty of the unity in human diversity. We share something with all other peoples and other times. Now we can begin to make some very general statements about myth. Myth is a constant among all human beings in all times. The patterns, stories, even details contained in myth are found everywhere and among everyone. This is because myth is a shared heritage of ancestral memories, related consciously from generation to generation. Myth may even be part of the structure of our unconscious mind, possibly encoded in our genes. Myth is a telling of events that happened before written history and of a sense of what is to come. Myth is a thread that holds past, present, and future together. Myth is a unique use of language that describes the realities beyond our five senses. It fills the gap between the images of the unconscious and the language of conscious logic. Myth is the glue that holds societies together. It is the basis of identities for communities, tribes, and nations. Myth is an essential ingredient in all codes of moral conduct. The rules for living have always derived from their legitimacy from the origins in myth and religion. Myth is a pattern of beliefs that give meaning to life. Myth enables individuals and societies to adapt to their respective environments with dignity and value. Okay, so with all that being said, right, is to understand this, that stories talking about Jesus and Satan, or rather, let me rephrase, the stories of Jesus and Satan are simply examples of what we would call mythology. And like I said before, like I already explained in the lecture, mythology is African science. African science to explain metaphysical, occult, esoteric, and atomical, just scientific concepts about life, about self, about the mind, about the psyche, about the spiritual world, all of that. You know what I'm saying? Now, in this slide right here, Christianity is remixed Kemetic mythology. The entire religion of Christianity, the basis of the religion of Christianity, I should say, is quite literally the mythology of ancient Kemet or the mythology of what we call ancient Egypt. Now, isn't it funny that we're taught based on the church for the most part that Egypt and everything that they were doing in Egypt was evil and wrong? Yet, when you do the research and you do the knowledge on Christianity, on the origins of it, you get to the realization that the entire basis of Christianity is based on what the Egyptians taught. Do you understand what I'm saying? In the church, they teach you that Egypt and everything they was doing is wrong. Oh my God, they was doing witchcraft, astrology, and all this stuff. Oh, they was sinners, and God punished them and all this stuff. Yet the entire religion would not exist if not for Egypt, because Egypt is where the entire religion got all of its principles from. You feel what I'm saying? Now, what I have before you right here is another excerpt from the book Christianity Before Christ by John G. Jackson, where he compares Horus and Jesus. Now, Horus is the Christ in the Kemetic mythology. And when you compare Horus and Jesus side by side with each other, then you find out that Horus and Jesus are the same person, essentially. It's talking about the same thing. It's literally just Jesus is literally just a plagiarized version or a remixed version of what Horus is. Not only that, but also if you go to the Hindu mythology and you look up and you research Krishna in the Hindu mythology, Krishna in the Hindu mythology is the Hindu Christ. So, and when you look at the parallels between them, then you see also that it's the same thing. You feel what I'm saying? So all these mythologies, they're just playing off of each other, remixes of each other, plagiarized versions of each other. You feel what I'm saying? But let's get into it, man. So the comparison of Horus and Jesus. Horus had two mothers, Isis the virgin who conceived him and Nephthys who nursed him. He was brought forth simply as one of five brothers. Jesus had two mothers, Mary the Virgin, who conceived him, and Mary, the wife of Cleophas, who brought him forth as one of her children. He was brought forth singly as one of five brethren. Horus was the son of Seb, his father on earth. Jesus was the son of Joseph, his father on earth. Horus was with his mother, the Virgin, until 12 years old, when he was transformed into the beloved Son of God as the only begotten of the Father in heaven. Jesus remained with his mother, the Virgin, up to the age of 12 years old, when he left her to be about his Father's business. From 12 to 30 years old, there is no record in the life of Horus. From 12 to 30 years of age, there is no record in the life of Jesus. Horus, at 30 years of age, became adult in his baptism by Anup. Jesus, at 30 years of age, was made a man in his baptism by John the Baptist. You feel me? Horus, in his baptism, made his transformation into the beloved Son and only begotten of the Father, the Holy Spirit represented by a bird. Jesus, in his baptism, is hailed from heaven as a beloved Son and the only begotten of the Father, God, the Holy Spirit, that is represented by a dove. A dove is another bird. Horus and Jesus is the same thing. You feel me? Let's continue though. Now, this is some more taken from Christianity Before Christ by John G. Jackson, talking about Jesus and Horus. Jesus and Horus at the age of 12 and 30 years of age. The first Horus was a child who always remained a child. In Egypt, the boy or girl wore the Horus lock of childhood until 12 years of age. Thus, childhood ended about the 12th year. But although adultship was then entered upon, the full adultship was not attained until 30 years of age. As with the man, so it was with the God. As with the man, so it is with the God. And the second Horus, the same God in his second character, is the Kemt or Chem Horus, the typical adult of 30 years. The god of the 12 years was Horus, the son of Isis, the mother's child. The virile Horus, the adult of 30 years, was representative of the fatherhood, and thus Horus is the anointed son of Osiris. These two characters of Horus the child and Horus the adult of 30 years are reproduced in the two phases to which the life of Jesus is limited in the Gospels. Thus, from the time when the child Christ was about 12 years of age until that of the typical Homophat of Egypt, which was the age assigned to Horus when he became the adult god, there is no history. This is in exact accordance with the Camite allegory of the double Horus. And the mythos alone will account for the chasm which is wide and deep enough to engulf a supposed history of 18 years. Childhood cannot be carried up beyond the 12th year. And the child Horus always remained a child, just as the child Christ does in Italy and always remained a child, just as the child Christ does in Italy and in the German folk tales, my fault. The mythical record founded on nature went no further, and there the history consequently halts within the prescribed limits. To re-begin with the anointed and regenerated Christ at the age of Chem Horus, the adult of 30 years. Taken from Gerald Massey, The Historical Jesus and the Mystical Christ. The Egyptian influence on Orthodox Christianity is far more profound than most people realize. All of us have seen the Chi Rho emblem displayed in many Christian churches and reputed to be the sacred monogram of Christ, talking about the cross. This monogram, originally sacred to Horus, was known in Egypt thousands of years before the beginning of Christianity, talking about the Ankh. You know what I'm saying? The whole Christian Bible was derived from the sacred books of Egypt, such as the whole Christian Bible was derived from the sacred books of Egypt, such as the Book of the Dead, the Pyramid Texts, and the books of Thoth. In the words of a distinguished American disciple of Gerald Massey, Dr. Alvin Boyd Kuhn, the entire Christian Bible creation legend, descent into an exodus of Egypt, Ark and Flood allegory, Israelite history, Hebrew prophecy and poetry, Gospels, epistles, and Revelation imagery, all are now proven to have been a transmission of ancient Egypt scrolls and papyri into the hands of later generations which knew neither the true origin nor their fathomless meaning. Long after Egypt's voice expressed through the inscribed hieroglyphics was hushed in silence, the perpetuated relics of Hamitic wisdom, with their cryptic message utterly lost, were brought forth and presented to the world by parties of ignorant zealots as a new body of truth. From the scrolls of papyri, 5,000 to 10,000 years old, there comes stalking forth to view the whole story of an Egyptian Jesus, raising from the dead an Egyptian Lazarus at an Egyptian Bethany, with two Egyptian mains present. The non historical prototype of the incident related only in John's Gospel from the walls of the temple of Luxor, there faces Christianity, a group of four scenes that spell the non historicity of four episodes pervade as history in the Gospel's recital of the Christ nativity. The angel's pronouncement to the shepherds tending their flocks by night in the fields, the annunciation of the angel to the virgin, the adoration of the infant by three magi. In the nativity scene itself, Egypt had used the symbol of a star rising in the east as the portent of coming deity for millennia anterior to the Christian era. Egypt had knelt at the shrine of the Madonna and child Isis and Horus. For long centuries before the historical Mary lifted the historical Jesus in her arms, Egypt had from remote times adored a Christ who had raised the dead and healed the lame, halt, blind, paralytic, leprous, and all afflicted, who had restored speech to the dumb, exorcised demons from the possessed, dispersed his enemies with a word or look, wrestled with his Satan adversary, overcame all temptation, and performed the works of his heavenly Father to the victorious end. Egypt had long known a Jesus who had been born amid celestial portents of an immaculate parenthood, circumcised, baptized, tempted, glorified on the mount, persecuted, arrested, tried, condemned, crucified, burned, buried, resurrected, and elevated to heaven. Egypt had listened to the Sermon on the Mount and the sayings of Ayusa for ages. Egypt had known a Jesus who long antedated the gospel of Messiah and who presented to the student some 108 items of identity, similarity, and correspondence in word, deed, and function with his later copy. Okay, so I just read a lot. I just read a lot. Now, what one must understand is this. What one must understand is this, that everything that we're talking about here is literally just all mythology, esoteric, metaphysical, occult science that is disguised as what you would call stories or historical stories. The mythology is what the modern day in us in the modern day have been led on to believe is things that actually went on and actually happened. The people who told us that these are things that actually went on and actually happened were who? The church and the political parties that existed in the ancient times after they came in and they conquered Kemet and they conquered different aspects of the world. All so that they could create a system of subjugation of the masses where the few are ruling over the many. Now let's continue. To even more pound this on the head, Satan and Jesus are one and the same. Satan and Jesus are literally the same person. I got two verses for y'all. Revelation chapter 22, verse 16. I, Jesus, have sent my angel to testify to you these things for the churches. I am the root and descendant of David, the bright morning star. Now, Isaiah chapter 14, verse 12. Now, there's many different translations of this. Originally, the original translation has Lucifer saying that he's the morning star. But coincidentally, the translations that follow after the original all say different things. They all say different things. You know what I'm saying? Like, so you kind of gotta use discernment. So this is the King James version. Isaiah, the King James version of the verse of Isaiah 14:12. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which did weaken the nation? Now it says Lucifer, son of the morning. Before, in the original, it said bright morning star. If you was to look it up on Google, you would see that it says not bright morning star, but oh Lucifer bright morning star. I meant my fault. If you was to look it up on Google, so Jesus and Satan are two halves to a coin, plain and simply representing what you would call duality or the left and the right hand paths, esoterically. Now, when you get into the occult science of it, which is corresponding to one's body, one's anatomy, and whatnot, then you would understand that Jesus and Satan are different aspects of your psyche as well as different aspects of the body itself. You feel me? So let's get into the left and the right hand path. Now, the left and the right hand path, plain and simply, they just represent what you would call the dark side, which is the left hand path, and the light side, which is the right hand path. Dark side is the left hand path, and the light side is the right hand path. It's the same thing on the Kabbalah, on the trees of the Kabbalah, whatever. Now, when we look at movies, my bad. When we look at movies, TV shows, anime, cartoons, we see this playing the same story basically. When you look at all these different movies and shows and cartoons, animes, whatever, with your spiritual eye, then you start to see that all of them essentially have the same thing, the same theme. It's always the dark versus the light. That's the main theme for the vast majority of TV shows, movies, all this different type of stuff. It's always the dark and the light. If you look at the anime Naruto, also in anime, this is you gotta watch anime, bro. All of this stuff is best represented, in my opinion, in anime, especially in Naruto. In Naruto, they clearly paint the picture for you, the dark side and the light side. You know what I'm saying? In Naruto, the dark side is Indra or the Uchiha. The Uchiha in Naruto are the dark side. Indra or Uchiha, Madara, or Sasuke. The light side is Ashura or Hashirama or Naruto. Now in Naruto, what do you see? What is the main difference between the dark side and the light side, or the dark side and the dark side and night and the light side in Naruto? The dark side, and this the left and the right hand path is perfectly represented here. The dark side is all about power. You know what I'm saying? It's all about power and, you know what I'm saying, cultivating the power of myself. That's why when you look at the left hand path, the left hand path could also be represented by the inverted star or the inverted pentagram, whatever, which is a symbol of me being the deity, channeling the energy through myself, me through myself channeling this energy. You know what I'm saying? Me utilizing my own power as the deity, as God. That's the left hand path. You feel me? The Uchiha are the greatest representations of the left hand path in anime. You feel me? In all of anime, at least from what I've seen, from the anime I've seen, the very greatest representation of the left-hand path are the Uchiha in Naruto. The Uchiha are all about power. The Uchiha are the most powerful beings in all of Naruto. The Uchiha clan by themselves could take over the entire world because their entire clan is descended from Indra, who is the embodiment of darkness. Darkness is the ultimate power. The ultimate power is dark. That's why you see in Naruto also, when it was Indra versus Ashura in Naruto, right? You see it was Indra by himself as the Susanoo. It was by him, Indra by himself as the Susanoo. Big ass, powerful, super strong Susanoo by himself. Versus Ashura, and Ashura had who? Ashura had what? It was Ashura plus it was the Sage of the Six Paths plus it was the entire village and everybody else was on Ashura's side. You know what I'm saying? And Ashura had his own jutsu and stuff, and ultimately Ashura only defeated Indra by combining his power with everybody else's power in order to take down Indra, who was only utilizing his own power. So Ashura by himself couldn't defeat Indra. Ashura, like I said, Ashura represented the light side, or the right-hand path. Ashura needed to come together with everybody else and put his power together with everybody else in order to defeat Indra. Indra was all about his own power. Susanoo, Sharingan, Rinnegan. Him by himself could have taken over the whole world. Nobody was more powerful than Indra. Nobody is more powerful. The darkness is the embodiment of power. You know what I'm saying? Light comes from the darkness. The darkness is the source. You know what I'm saying? So that's one right there. Or if you go into another anime, my favorite anime, my personal favorite anime, One Piece. My personal favorite anime, One Piece. You see, it's Luffy, the main character of One Piece. Monkey D. Luffy. Mugiwara no Luffy. Mugiwara no Luffy. You know what I'm saying? The main character of One Piece. Mugiwara no Luffy. My nigga Luffy. Versus Blackbeard. Luffy represents the right-hand path. Blackbeard represents the left-hand path. As you can see, what did Hawkeye Mihawk say about Luffy in the anime One Piece? He said, Luffy's ultimate power is the ability to sway everybody to his side. Luffy's ultimate power in the anime One Piece is that just based on his energy, his own spirit, he has the ability to make anybody his friend, basically. Like he has the ability to make enemies his friend and make enemies his allies, make everybody like wanna fight for him, wanna be on his side. You know what I'm saying? And then when you look at Blackbeard, on the other hand, Blackbeard once again represents the left-hand path. Blackbeard's devil fruit is what? Blackbeard's devil fruit is the dark fruit. Literally, Blackbeard's power is darkness. Blackbeard's power is darkness itself. You feel me? Darkness itself. His power is darkness itself. And the Blackbeard says it from his own mouth in the anime One Piece, that darkness swallows up everything. And that darkness is the ultimate power. You feel me? In all of these movies and TV shows, animes, mythologies, everything is always talking about the light side and the dark side. Star Wars, you got Darth Vader and you got Luke. Darth Vader, the dark side. Luke, the light side. You feel me? It's all the same thing. When you go to the the Justice League, Goku and Vegeta, exactly. Vegeta is the dark side. Vegeta is like the dark side of things, the dark side of the Saiyan, the dark side of the Saiyans. Goku's the light side. You know what I'm saying? Spirit Bomb, same shit. When you look at the Justice League, what do they? The Justice League, literally in the Justice League, they have a villain. The villain's name is Darkseid in the Justice League. You feel me? Bruh, They put it right in your face. All of this shit is the same thing. It's the same thing. It's basically just all the same story. You go to X-Men. What happened in the X-Men? It was X-Men Apocalypse. Apocalypse is the dark side, the left-hand path. And all the X-Men and shit, they was all the right-hand path, the light side. You feel me? But literally in Justice League, the main villain in Justice League is named Darkseid. You know what I'm saying? Darkseid is literally his name. And then there's the rest of the Justice League, Superman, Batman, and the rest of them niggas. You feel me? Like it's literally all the same shit. And this same story of the dark and the light side is repeated over and over and over and over and over again in damn near every single mythology, every single movie, TV show, everything that we see. So one must ask themselves why though? Like why the dark and the light side? It's plain and simply because one must understand that we are both, where we are both of that. What we are is the we're the complete finished product of what you call God. Where all of us are the final product of God. You feel what I'm saying? Where God is chaos or just all everything and nothing at the same time. We are the embodiment of that chaos. We're the embodiment of light and the embodiment of dark. That's what we are, human beings. That's what we are. You feel me? Just like how there's electricity, right? Electricity is everywhere and nowhere at the same time. But electricity doesn't really have any power until you plug some shit in. And next thing you know, now your TV is on. You feel me? Now the electricity has something to funnel itself through to create some type of power, to enact its power, enact its will. You feel what I'm saying? We are that. We are the light and the dark, the embodiment of all of it. And ultimately, everything that we're doing here on earth is a battle between light and the dark. That's what essentially everything is, the light and the dark aspects of our own consciousness. You feel me? That's what things like morality and laws and all this stuff is here for. It's plain and simply because we understand that there's a dark side and there's a light side to our own psyche, all of our psyches, our consciousness itself. You know what I'm saying? And with that, with those two aspects of ourselves, rather, you know what? I'm gonna rephrase. I'm gonna rephrase. I'm gonna rephrase. When we look at things like good and evil, right? We make up things like good and evil. We make up concepts like good and evil in order for us to try and control the chaos that is the reality of our lives. We create things like good and evil in order to control like our dark and our light has. You know what I'm saying? To create some type of balance between the two. We say this is good and that is evil type of thing. You feel me? And this dichotomy between good and evil was something that was essentially used as a weapon of control by, I guess you could say, the powers that be, or the few that seek to rule over the many. You feel what I'm saying? But when you step into spiritual teachings, or when you step into the occult, then you learn about both sides to it. And you learn about that dark side of things, which is the ultimate power when it comes to this reality. You know what I'm saying? Everything that you talk about Satan, you got to really think. In this world, they tell you that Satan is like the ultimate enemy to everything. But who is telling you that Satan is the ultimate enemy? Who told you that Satan is the ultimate enemy? The same people who put you into slavery, whether it be chains on your feet and your hands, chains on your feet and your ankles, or whether it be financial slavery or psychological mental slavery. They're the ones that's telling you that the Satan thing is some evil stuff and that's bad. You don't want to go near that. Satanism and Satanism, oh my God, and all that shit. So when you start to question reality, you start to question the things that you was taught. And you start to do research into these things, that you start to realize when it comes to Satan, Satan is literally just telling you about the dark side, the left-hand path. Jesus is the light side, the right-hand path. You feel what I'm saying? And when you put them both together, that's the reality of our lives. That is what reality is. Yin and yang. It's the same shit. Yin and yang, day and night. The dualities, the polarities of everything. It's all the same thing. But if you was to study more into the Gnostics, then you would understand that the Gnostics say that Satan is the one who created this world. Partly because Satan represents the darkness. Satan represents knowledge and darkness and whatnot, power. Because one must understand, when you look at light, all light is a product of the darkness. You feel what I'm saying? The effect is a product of the cause. You know what I'm saying? Let's continue though. Okay, so the build part 4, ancient history at the root. Now, from the conquest of Egypt or Kemet by Alexander the Great, the Greeks began to imitate the Egyptian religion in its entirety. This is taken from Stolen Legacy by George G.M. James. So, quite literally, after Alexander the Great and his peoples came through and took shit over, quite literally, they seen our ancestors in they fly ass robes and shit. You know what I'm saying? All the priests had at least 10 wives with them. You dig me? You feel me? It was lit. Like niggas was lit. And you feel me? We was levitating. Niggas wasn't even walking. They was just levitating. You feel me? They was just floating through the air and shit. You know what I mean? They was moving shit with they mind. Niggas was lit, dummy lit. You go into the libraries of Kemet in Egypt, all you see is just miles and miles of bookshelves of books and scrolls and shit. Niggas was smart as heck. Yeah, you feel me? Like they seen niggas was lit and they destroyed everything. And they said, damn, these niggas is lit as hell. Let's copy they shit. And quite literally, historically, this is a historical fact. They started to copy, they copied the religion. They started to wear the priestly robes that the Kemetic or Egyptian priests used to wear. They started to do that. And when you look at even the Pope today, go look at the Pope in the Vatican and whatnot. The Pope in the Vatican and these different popes, they wear the same priestly robes that our ancestors used to wear in ancient Kemet. Not only that, but when you look at that black outfit that the priests be wearing, that blackness is a representation of the black man and the black woman who were the originators of these mystical teachings that they stole, that they're ancient, they stole all this shit from. You got to understand how deep this shit really get. Like, you got to understand how deep this shit get. You got to understand how deep this shit get. You know what I'm saying? Okay, now the Christian religion is used as a political tool of conquest and social engineering / control of society. So they came through and they destroyed, destroyed, and then after they came through and destroyed, they started to wear our shit and started to imitate us and also plagiarize and remix our mythology and our spiritual systems, our everything. You feel me? Historically understand that the pale face people historically are known for nothing else on the planet except for killing and stealing. Ultimately, historically all they did was kill and steal. They took shit that was originally other people's and just put their names on it. And then they taught you that it was their shit in the beginning in their schools, in the public school, in the college, all of that shit, bro. Even in the church, they took the shit that was other people's, others indigenous cultures and whatnot. They conquered, killed niggas, stole their shit, put their names on it, and then they wrote history books saying that originally all this stuff was actually theirs, and they just flipped the history, saying, "Oh yeah, all this shit is us." And the black people, yeah, they was on some fucking monkey shit, throwing shit at each other or something like that. And then they teach that to you in the school system. You feel what I'm saying? You feel what I'm saying? You got to understand it is for reasons like this as to why this whole shit gotta just get burned down, or this whole shit gotta just get destroyed, or eventually eventually there's gonna come a point where niggas get up and they take this shit back by force. And it's gonna be pussy Bodo war. Just know that. Like Nick, it's gonna be that type of energy gonna be coming through on the planet. At some point, it's inevitable. Literally, it's inevitable. It's inevitable. It may not happen today, or in a year from now, or in 10 years from now, or maybe even not even 100 years from now. But at some point, it's inevitable that there has to come a time when niggas stand up and they forcibly take back everything that was taken. And they, you know what I'm saying? Eventually it's gonna happen. Pussy Bodo war type shit. Okay, so now anything out of alignment with the Jesus doctrine is deemed evil and the works of Satan. Now a good book to read about this is a book called The Origins of Satan by Elaine Pagels. The Origins of Satan by Elaine Pagels is a very good book to read about the origins of Satan and how like the entire Satan story even became a thing, and like how it became remixed and shit like that. Know what I'm saying? So they created the Christian religion, and they used the Christian religion as a political tool of conquest. So literally they use Christianity as an excuse in order to colonize, destroy, pillage, kill, and steal all over the world. You feel me? And they also part of their political or spiritual weapon, Christianity, was saying that anything that was out of line with Jesus or against Jesus was the works of Satan. Now let's look into that a little bit more. Let's look into that. When it comes to that, right, we have to understand linguistics and etymology. You must understand linguistics and etymology. Now, linguistics are the study. Linguistics is the study of human speech, including the units, nature, structure, and modification of language. And etymology is the history of a linguistic form, such as a word, shown by tracing its development since its earliest recorded occurrence in the language where it is found, by tracing its transmission from one language to another, by analyzing it into its component parts, by identifying its cognates in other languages, or by tracing it in its cognates to a common ancestral form in an ancestral language. Okay, so why am I bringing this up, right? We must understand when it comes to linguistics how is how you're a is how linguistics is how people like different government politicians and stuff are able to tell you the truth, except tell you the truth in a way to where they're like saying something completely different, or you think they're saying something completely different, but they actually mean something else. aka double talk. People who are masters of linguistics, meaning masters of the tongue, masters of speech, masters of conversation, masters of talking, they're able to do certain gymnastics with their language, like double talk. You know what I'm saying? Double talk, as in I'm saying one thing, but I mean something entirely different. You feel me? Like, for example, when you look at the word minority, you'll hear some people say, oh, minority, they'll talk about minority groups or the minorities, whatever, right? And in your mind, you think minority means like a lesser group, a lesser amount of the whole. Like there's 10 people and 7 out of those 10 people are these people. And 3 out of the there and the 3 those 3 people that are not the 7, they're the minority, right? Your mind thinks that's what minority means. But minority has another definition. Minority has another meaning. Another meaning to minority is one group that is being dominated or subjugated by another group. So you need to understand the double talk that could be used or has been used in history right in front of you. At times when they bring up the word minority, they don't necessarily mean like just a lesser half. When they say minority, another aspect of minority is like the niggas that we is subjugating, the people that we is fucking making ignorant and making slaves out of mentally and shit like that. That those are the minorities. You feel me? Like calling us black people. Facts. Facts. You gotta understand like how deep this shit goes, bro. You gotta understand like how deep the what you call witchcraft using words itself, how deep that goes. Cause words are spells. We know this shit. Words are spells. You feel what I'm saying? Quite literally, all I have to do is say something in a certain type of way in order to get a certain type of effect from what I say. You know what I'm saying? Saying I love you or I hate you, it creates a different effect in your consciousness. You feel me? I love you. I hate you. You know what I'm saying? It affects you differently. But what did I do? All I did was just change a word. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying? It should get deep. All right, so we're gonna use the example of Satan. Now, the etymology of Satan, when we look up the etymological root of Satan, right? Look up the etymology of Satan. It says the proper name of the supreme evil spirit and great adversary of humanity and Christianity. The Old English Satan comes from the late Latin Satan, in Vulgate in the Old Testament only, or that comes from, and then before that is the Greek Satanus, and then before that comes the Hebrew Satan or Shaitan, meaning an adversary or one who plots against another, or to show enmity to, or to oppose, or to plot against, or acts as an adversary. And it says here also in the Septuagint, usually translated into Greek as diabolos, means slanderer, or literally one who throws something across the path of another, like a person who creates an obstacle. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so if we look up the etymology of Satan, and the etymology of Satan is an adversary or an opposer or person who creates obstacles or something like that and all that, right? Then where did like the spooky idea, the spooky spirit of like, oh, like Satan is this evil spirit and all this shit, like type of thing. You know what I'm saying? Come from, or rather, if Satan is the opposer or the opposite or the adversary, right? And then when we go back and we understand that historically they use Christianity as a tool of conquest, and they said that anything out of alignment with Jesus, the Jesus doctrine, is deemed to be evil and the works of Satan, the works of Satan, and Satan is just an adversary or an opposer, right? Then that begs the question. That begs the question, which is, what was the opposer, opposite, or adversary to the church and the Jesus doctrine? If they said that anything that's not in line with the Jesus doctrine is Satan or the works of Satan, is evil, then what exactly was not in line with the Jesus doctrine? What exactly were they calling Satan? You get what I'm saying? What exactly is it that they were saying were the works of Satan? What were they saying were the works of Satan? And the answer is the people or the things that they were saying were the works of Satan were pagans, aka people with no religion, aka people have who did not identify with with Christianity, with Islam, or with Judaism, or the main religions of the world at the time. Anybody who didn't identify with one of those main religions was called a pagan, as well as witches, what they call witches, aka women who were in tune with nature and the spirit, and who had specialized knowledge on how to manipulate nature and the spirit in a certain way, or nature worshippers, or alchemists, people who were alchemists, who understood the science of alchemy, whether it be physical alchemy, mental alchemy, spiritual alchemy, whatever, but alchemists, sorcerers, shamans, or witch doctors, aka men and women who are in tune with nature and the spirit, who use nature and the spirit in order to heal people. All of these different people, all of these different groups of people were who they said opposed the Jesus doctrine and were doing the works of Satan. Now, look, the etymology of Satan is an adversary or an opposer. And they say that people who are practicing alchemy and sorcery and people who are shamans and witches and stuff like that, pagans, they're saying that they're doing the works of Satan. How exactly are they opposing the Jesus doctrine? Well, you need to understand that this entire religion, this entire thing was used as a political tool. So they're saying that they're opposing the doctrine as an excuse in order to say, yo, that's Satan, they're evil, they're bad. Therefore we have an excuse to colonize, to destroy, to kill, to indoctrinate, to subjugate, to conquer. You feel what I'm saying? You need to understand how deep it gets. You feel me? Let's continue though. Now, this goes into something called the doctrine of discovery. Now, the doctrine of discovery is, to put it simply, them using, once again, the church using the excuse of religion in order to come through to indigenous people's lands and say, yo, will you follow or do you worship, do you give your life worship or whatever to our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ? And then the indigenous people who live on the land, they're like, Jesus? What can you talk about Jesus? I don't know about no Jesus, nigga. I ain't with that Jesus shit. Like I'm here living, nigga. I'm here living off the land. I'm living my life exactly how I want to live it. You gonna come to me talking about some Jesus? Like, nah, I'm good on that. And then the church people saying, oh, you don't want to be with Jesus? Okay. So since you don't want to be with Jesus, then that means you were doing the works of Satan. You're with Satan. If you're not with Jesus, that means you with Satan. That's the logic. That's what the church used. You feel what I'm saying? But let's read this though. This is something that's taken from National Geographic. The origins of the doctrine of discovery. The doctrine has its roots in the early days of the Age of Exploration. Through the 15th century, the Roman Catholic Church responded to European Catholic nations' ambitions to explore and colonize other regions. In a series of edicts known as papal bulls, popes gave those nations the right to take control of other lands, subdue the people who already lived there, and convert them to Christianity. Now, this is something I heard Daylight say in the video that I watched earlier today. You need to understand something that all my people who understand history, and I'm not talking about the white boy history that's taught, the bullshit history that's taught in public school, but I'm talking about real history, like when you pick up books yourself and you really try to understand and learn like how this world became what it is today. I want you to understand that if you a person that sees through it all and you got the magic glasses on, like in the movie They Live, when he had the magic glasses on, and next thing you know, he looked at a sign and it was like an advertisement, but then he put the magic glasses on and he saw that the advertisement actually said sleep or obey or buy or consume or some shit. You know what I'm saying? I want you to understand that if you a person who got the magic glasses on, it's your responsibility to be responsible. You have to be responsible for the knowledge that you have, the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding that you have, because you kind of operating off of two sides. If you a person that know, but you're not acting in your knowing, and you're not acting responsible for the knowing that you have, then by definition, you're essentially just a part of the system. You feel me? You feel me? Understand that the system is a system that is meant to literally create a product called a human being, an ignorant motherfucker, an ignorant ass human being. That's main function is to feed that system through his or her own energy, whether it be in the form of a 9 to 5, or whether it be in the form of some type of entrepreneurship, money shit type of thing. And I'm not talking down on money and getting money and stuff. I'm a person. I love money. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? I like wealth and shit. You know what I mean? And all that. But you gotta understand when you look at like rappers and singers and shit, who you notice that most rappers and singers and whatnot, they all kind of rap and sing about the same shit. Now, what does that tell you? That tells you that that is a part of the perpetuation of the mind control system that was created hundreds of years ago. You see what I'm saying? So even them, they're part of the system. But you see, the thing is, they're getting paid a lot. Therefore, they continue to do what they do. You feel what I'm saying? You feel me? Like that. That's the thing about it. I can give you, if I can give you, everybody has their price. Essentially, everybody kind of got like their price. If I said, "Yo, I'll give you $1 if you kick this old lady down the steps. Kick this old ass lady down the steps. I'll give you $1." You look at me like, nigga, what? If I said, yo, I'll give you $1 million if you kick that old lady down the steps. Some of y'all niggas, yo, most of y'all gonna kick that old lady down the steps. Like y'all may feel bad about it, but shit, y'all gonna do it. Y'all gonna do that shit for that $1 million. Or some of y'all maybe mentally strong. But some of y'all may be mentally strong and be like, nah, I ain't doing that shit. I ain't doing that. So then if I said to you, all right, cool, I give you $1 billion if you kick that old lady down the steps. 99% of niggas is kicking that old lady down the steps. I know I am. I'm gonna keep it a bean. I'm kicking the old lady down the steps for $1 billion. I keep it a bean. But what does that say about? What does that say? That said everybody got their price, and you got to understand that as long as there's somebody who was printing and creating the money, and everybody has their price, what does that mean? That they will always that person who was creating and printing the money will forever stay in control. They'll forever stay in control as long as they're creating and printing the money. As long as people have their price, then the people creating and printing the money will always be in control. Therefore, those people creating and printing the money will always be the ones who are creating and steering the narrative. It is not until the revolutionary mind comes into play. It's not until the revolutionary mind comes into play that things change. You feel what I'm saying? But let's continue. So this is taken from a book called Awaken the World Within by Professor Hilton Hotima. In this book, Awaken the World Within by Hilton Hotima, he says that all spiritual texts prior to 2,000 years ago were scientific manuals that were turned into religion. Esoteric science, metaphysics are the science of the spirit, and the various spiritual texts that exist are manuals to that science, just like how a biology or chemistry textbook is a manual to chemistry or biology. So, don't you think it's kind of fishy? I know I this is how I used to think when I was a kid, when I was like 7, 8 years old. I used to think like this when I was like 7, 8 years old, right? I used to like I'd be in class in school and the teacher would be like, okay, write the date. Today is September 2003, 2004, whatever, right? I'll I'll write it. Mind you, I'm like 7, 8 years old. I'll write it down. And then I'll think to myself, I'll be like, damn, I wonder what was happening. Like today's 2003. We're in the year 2003. What happened 2003 years ago? I used to think like this when I was when I was like 7, 8 years old. I swear to God, I used to always just question shit. I used to always just be like, this is some weird shit going on in this world. I used to always think like this, like, yo, like why everybody talking about this God and Jesus stuff? Like, what is like, you know what I'm saying? Like, what I wonder what was happening 2003 years ago. Like, is that when like the world started? Like the world started 2003 years ago? You feel me? And then I found out niggas was like, oh nah, we've been here for millions of years. And then that's what really threw me. Like, mind you, I'm a child. I'm like 8 years old, 7, 8 years old. And I find out somebody's like, oh nah, we've been here for millions of years. So in my head, I go, we've been here for millions of years. But then I did my little addition and subtraction. I just learned that shit last week. So I do my little addition and subtraction. I'm like, millions of years minus 2003. Wait a minute. What the? I'm like, if we been hit, I swear to God, on my mama, nigga, like, I'm like 7, 8 years old thinking, like, if we've been here for millions of years and today is 2003, who decided 2003 years ago, who decided that today is day one? You feel me? Like 2003 years ago, who decided, like, you know what, today is day one? Like, and decided that for the whole world. Like, who was able to decide to the entire world that, yo, today is the first day of life? Like, You know what I'm saying? I used to think that way as a kid. I'm like, yo, what the fuck, my nigga? Like, you feel me? You feel me? You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? But let's continue though, man. Okay. And all they talk about is American history. Yo, bro. Yo, bro. Another red flag. Another red flag that I picked up on when I was like in middle school and high school was Black History Month. Yo, bro, Black History Month, right? Son, I remember being in like ninth grade, 10th grade, and 11th grade. Those are like the key years right there where I realized that I realized this entire world was like fucked. Like there was something just really messed up with the entire world. That's when I realized. Now, what really like confirmed it to me was Black History Month. And the way it went was like this. In my head, I said, yo, nah, it was like ninth grade, right? And ninth grade, my Black History Month come. They teach, yeah, Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass, and slavery, right? That's what I was taught about Black history in ninth grade, basically, right? I'm like, all right, okay. So 10th grade comes. 10th grade, I get taught Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass, and slavery. So I'm like, 2 years in a row. I'm like, interesting. Like this, okay, I guess I'll learn something new next year. You know what I'm saying? I guess I'll learn some new shit next year. I feel that. Okay. Then 11th grade comes. Black History Month comes. 11th grade. What do I learn about? I learn Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass, George Washington Carver, and slavery. So them niggas just added in some George Washington Carver with the peanut shit. You know what I'm saying? But then everything else was the same. I said, yeah. I say, yeah, there's something really messed up about this world. That's when all the red flags just officially really like hit for me. I said, wow, these niggas been teaching me the same thing every single year. Like I'm a so-called black person, and these niggas every single year is teaching me the exact same thing about my history in the history of my people. Like the every single year they teaching me the exact same shit. That's everything. You feel me? That's when I realized I'm in high school, middle school, all that. I realized I'm like, yeah, this shit is spooky. There's some spooky shit going on in this world. I don't know what is going on. I don't know why. I don't know what or why. I don't know how. I don't know who's writing these textbooks and giving like I don't know who's doing this shit, but there's some really spooky shit going on in this world for them to be teaching niggas the same shit every single year. That's not education, nigga. That's training. I realized that shit when I was in high school. I'm like, yo, these niggas is training me. Like this ain't no education. This is a form of some type of training that is being done to me, to my mind. They're trying to train my mind to be a certain way. Otherwise, why would they be teaching me the exact same shit every single year? Like, you know what I'm saying? I realized that shit in high school. I said, these niggas is training all of us to be a certain way. But none of us probably don't even see it because most people, most of us just trying to just get through the day, just trying to get through the school day. Like most of us is like half asleep and shit. You know what I'm saying? Most of us half asleep. We gotta be in this fucking school 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. You know what I'm saying? But niggas is just trying to pass the class. You know what I'm saying? Niggas is just trying to pass the class and shit. Like, you feel me? You know, like niggas just trying to pass the class. But I realized that. But I remember thinking that in high school. I remember being a little kid thinking that. I remember being a little kid. Uh, I mean, being in high school thinking that shit too. Like, yeah, this world's spooky, nigga. This world's spooky. My man said we need to slide for Rashad. My nigga Rashad Jamal. I don't know what's going on with that nigga, man. Shout out to that brother for enlightening the people and for creating for creating a wave of consciousness and waking up people. But I'm gonna keep it 1,000 with y'all. I think Rashad Jamal. I think we should start saying R.I.P. to Rashad Jamal. I think we should start saying R.I.P. and holding the funeral for that nigga. And I think like we should cherish his teachings and definitely, you know what I'm saying, really, yeah, we should really cherish his shit and all of that. But I think it's RIP for that nigga. Now, if he get out, then I hope in the spirit, I hope the nigga get out. But what they say he's facing like what 12 years? Is it 12 years or was it longer than that? It was like how long was it? It was like how many years in jail and prison? You know what? Let me not say RIP. That's too. I'm ODing when I say RIP. But like 16 years, yeah, 16 years, bro. 16 years, man. 16 years, man. Hey, hey, 16 years. All I'm gonna say is all of us are leaders, all of us are teachers, all of us are all of us have something to offer to the people when it comes to consciousness, when it comes to the spirit, when it comes to just being a truth seeker, when it comes to being a revolutionary. All of us got something to offer. So I don't think it's wise to depend upon another. You feel me? When all of us got all this knowledge that we can get. You know what I mean? But so we heading into the ending of this lecture. Now, this is some taken from The Occult Anatomy of Man by Manly P. Hall. Now, he talks about the esoteric or the occult symbolism of the scriptures of the Bible and different mythologies. Now, this is like a overview of it, essentially, of what he was of what he was teaching. He says, the human body and symbolism, part one. In scripture, we are told that God made man in his own image. It is so stated not only in the Christian Bible, but also in the holy writings of nearly all enlightened people. The Jewish patriarchs taught that the human body was the microcosm or little cosmos, made in the image of the macrocosm or the great cosmos. This analogy between the finite and the infinite is said to be one of the keys by the aid of which the secrets of the Holy Writ are unlocked. There is no doubt that the Old Testament is a physiological and anatomical textbook to those capable of reading it from a scientific viewpoint. The functions of the human body, the attributes of the human mind, and the qualities of the human soul have been personified by the wise men of the ancient world, and a great drama has been built around their relationships to themselves and to each other. So the great Egyptian demigod Hermes, aka Tahuti or Thoth, the human race owes its concept of the law of analogy. The great Hermetic axiom was that which is above is unto that which is below, and that which is below is like unto that which is above. The religions of the ancient world were all based upon nature worship, which in a degenerated form has survived to our own day as phallicism. The worship of the parts and functions of the human body began in the later Lemurian period. During the Atlantean epoch, this religion gave place to sun worship, but the new faith incorporated into its doctrines many of the rituals and symbols of the previous belief. The building of temples in the form of the human body is a custom common to all peoples. The tabernacle of the Jews, the great Egyptian temple of Karnak, the religious structures of the Hawaiian priests, and the Christian churches laid out in the form of the cross are all examples of this practice. If the human body were laid out with the arms spread in the shape of any of the buildings of these buildings, it would be found that the high altar would occupy the same relative position in the building that the brain occupies in the human body. All of the priests of the ancient world were anatomists. They recognized that all the functions of nature were reproduced in miniature in the human body. They therefore used man as the textbook, teaching their disciples that to understand man was to understand the universe. These wise men believed that every star in the heavens, every element in the earth, and every function in nature was represented by a corresponding center, pole, or activity within the human body. This correlation between nature without and the nature of man within, which was concealed from the multitudes, formed the secret teachings of the ancient priestcrafts. Religion in Atlantis and Egypt was taken much more seriously than it is today. It was the very life of these peoples. The priests had complete control over the millions of ignorant men and women who had been taught since childhood that these robed and bearded patriarchs were direct messengers from God. And it was believed that any disobedience to the commands of the priests would bring down upon the offender's head the wrath of the Almighty. The temple depended for its maintenance upon its secret wisdom, which gave its priests control over certain powers of nature and made them vastly superior in wisdom and understanding to the lady whom they controlled. These wise ones realized that there was a great deal more involved in religion than the chanting of mantras and the singing of hymns. They realized that the path of salvation could be walked successfully only by those who have practical, scientific knowledge of the occult function of their own bodies. The anatomical symbolism which they evolved in order to perpetuate this understanding has come down to modern Christianity, but the keys to it have apparently been lost. It is a tragic situation for religionists that they are surrounded by hundreds of symbols which they cannot understand, but it is still sadder that they have even forgotten that these symbols ever had any meaning other than the foolish interpretations which they themselves have concocted. The idea prevalent in the minds of Christians that their faith is the one and only truly inspired doctrine and that it came parentless into the world is unreasonable in the extreme. A study of comparative religions proves beyond doubt that Christianity has begged, borrowed, or stolen its philosophies and concepts from the religions and philosophies of the ancient and medieval pagan worlds. Among the religious symbols and allegories which belonged to the world long before the coming of Christianity are a few to which we would like to call your attention. The following Christian symbols and concepts are of pagan origin. The Christian cross comes from Egypt and India, the triple mitre from the faith of the Mithriacs, the shepherd's crook from the Hermetic mysteries in Greece, the Immaculate Conception from India, the Transfiguration from Persia, and the Trinity from the Brahmins. The Virgin Mary as the Mother of God is found in a dozen different faiths. There are over 20 crucified world saviors. The church steeple is an adaptation of Egyptian obelisks and pyramids, while the Christian devil is the Egyptian Typhon with certain modifications. The deeper one goes into the problem, the more he realizes that there is nothing new under the sun. A truly sincere study of the Christian faith proves beyond all doubt that it is the evolutionary outgrowth of primitive doctrines. There is an evolution in religion as well as in physical form. If we accept and incorporate into our doctrines the religious symbolism of nearly 40 peoples, it behooves us to understand, at least in part, the meaning of the myths and allegories which we borrow, lest we be more ignorant than those from whom we secured them. This brochure is devoted to the problem of explaining the relationship existing between the symbolism of the ancient priests and the occult functions of the human body. We must first understand that all sacred writings are supposed to be sealed with 7 seals. In other words, it requires 7 complete interpretations to understand fully the meaning of these ancient philosophic revelations, which we have liked to call Holy Writ. Scripture is not intended to be historical. Those who understand its literal meaning understand the least of its meaning. It is a well known fact that, for dramatic reasons, in his plays, Shakespeare brought characters together who had actually lived hundreds of years apart. But Shakespeare was not writing history, he was penning drama. The same is true of the Bible. Scripture leaves historians hopelessly involved in self contradictory chronological tables where the majority of historians will remain until the judgment day. Scripture furnishes excellent subject matter for debates and also ground for hair splitting over the meaning of terms and probable locations of unknown cities. Most of the Bible towns now pointed out by guides were named hundreds of years after the birth of Christ by pilgrims who suspected them of having occupied sites somewhere near those mentioned in the Bible. All this may prove convincing to some, but to the thinker, it is conclusive evidence that history is the least important part of Scripture. When the Empress Helena visited Jerusalem in 326 AD, the mother of Constantine, the Great discovered that not only all trace of Christianity had already been lost, but that a temple dedicated to the goddess Venus stood on the hill now accepted as Mount Calvary. Less than 400 years after the death of Christ, there was apparently no one in the Holy Land who had ever heard of him. This does not necessarily imply that he never lived, but it certainly does indicate that the halo of miracles and supernatural atmosphere with which modern Christianity envelops him are largely mythological. Like all other religions, the Christian faith accumulated a weird collection of fantastic legends, which are its own worst enemies. For they have taken the simple moralist of Nazareth, the man who loved his fellow creatures, and built around him a superstructure of idolatry which loves no one and serves only itself. As Buddha in India merely reformed the Brahmin concepts of his day, so Jesus reshaped the faith of Israel and gave to his disciples and the world a doctrine based upon that which had gone before, but remodeled to meet the needs of the people who surrounded him and the problems which confronted the Jewish nation. The Essenes who educated Jesus were of Egyptian or Hindu origin, and his faith incorporated the best of that which had gone before. The records preserved of him are largely allegorical, and the simple man is plunged by them into a great sea of supernaturalism. This was not entirely without purpose, however, for as Shakespeare took license with history in order to present essential truths, so it seems the historians of Jesus used the character of the man as the groundwork of a great drama. He becomes the history he becomes the hero of a seven sealed story, and those Christians who have studied symbolism can gain from that story the key of the true Christian mysteries. They will then realize that scripture is perpetual history, that it pertains to no nation or people, but it is the story of all nations and all peoples. It is a wonderful thing, for example, to study the life of Christ in the light of astronomy, for he becomes the sun, and his disciples the 12 signs of the zodiac. Among the constellations, we find the scenes of his ministry, and in the processions of the equinoxes, the story of his birth, growth, maturity, and death for men. Again, the tortured chemicals in the retort further reveal to us the life of the master. But with the key to chemistry, the scriptures become another book. In this particular work, however, we can only concern ourselves with the relationship of these allegories to the human body. The life of Christ, as found in the Gospels, we discover has been conventionalized until it agrees perfectly with the lives of dozens of world saviors, for all of them are also astronomical and physiological myths. All of these myths come to us out of the most remote antiquity, where the primitive races used the human body as a symbolic unit, and the gods and demons were personified out of the organs and functions of the body. Among certain Kabbalistic writers, the Holy Land is mapped out on a human body, and the various cities are shown as centers of consciousness in man. There is a wonderful study here for those who will investigate deeply and sincerely the ancient mysteries. We cannot hope to cover all the ground, but if you can gain from this booklet a key to the situation, we hope you will pursue the line of thought until you have made it all inclusive and open at least one seal of the book of divine revelation. Okay, so to sum it all up, to sum it all up, we're going back to those questions. Question number one. If this is what is believed and practiced today, as in the different practices when it comes to the religion thing. What are the origins of these beliefs and teachings? The origins of these beliefs and teachings are in the mystery systems of Kemet, the Kemetic mythology and spiritual system, as well as the Indian mythology and spiritual system, the Sumerian mythologies, and many mythologies, as well as Gnosticism and the scriptures that come from Gnosticism. What were the original teachings or understandings at the root? The original teachings is that man and woman is the microcosm of the macrocosm. God manifested in the micro or lesser body, which is what we call the human body, while having its being in the greater body, which is what we call the universe. We exist on multiple planes of thought and consciousness. The mystical teachings written in allegory, metaphor, and symbolism serve as a guide for the person or the initiate to access and understand higher planes of thought and consciousness, as well as a telling of who and what we are as a collective entity. You feel me? Prior to these teachings and beliefs existing, what were people doing and what did they believe in or understand? Prior to the religions, people on the planet existed at a higher state of consciousness, harnessing the power of nature and walking hand in hand with it as we understood that we were nature. We existed and lived based on our knowing and not belief, aka man know thyself. So we understood that we were nature, meaning we understood that we were God. And that when you talk about God being outside of yourself, you're talking about a different aspect of your own self. But modern day religion and modern day spiritual teachings have you praying and worshiping something outside of yourself that they have put into your mind. The key to higher consciousness, enlightenment, whatever you want to call it, is plain and simply to just go within your own self, to go into nature, to tap in with yourself through meditation, deep meditation, and discover the truth and have the spirit bring to you the truth within your own self, from within your own self. And what is the ultimate truth at the root? And if that truth is not in alignment with what is being practiced today, then how and why did we get to this point? Ultimately, we're all what we call God, Allah, Jah, Brahma, whatever, and have things like meditation, psychedelics, and mystical teachings to remind us of that. But the masses of the planet were taken advantage of by the few who seek to rule the many through many kinds of warfare, being psychological warfare, physical warfare, meaning guns, soldiers on the ground, whatever, boots on the ground, psychological warfare, spiritual warfare, etc. And we're taught that the God that we are is something outside of ourselves, and we were made to worship and be subservient. You know what I'm saying? And what's the name of the book? The Occult Anatomy of Man by Manly P. Hall. Also, all my people on TikTok, tune into my YouTube to watch the replay of the live. It's going to be there forever. You feel me? So, you know what I'm saying? Now, with all this being said, right, where do we go from here? One must understand that the highest power is with the truth, and that we, the adults, are the future. The children are not the future. The adults are the future. Now, what do I mean by this? This is something I also heard Bobby Hemmett say, and I agree with it, that the adults are the future and not the children, meaning if it's a genius child who was born to two crack-headed parents, 9 times out of 10, that child is probably going to end up fucked up in a fucked up situation with a fucked up mindset and just messed up mentally, psychologically, spiritually, because his parents were fucked up. The adults, the parents, the adults are the guides to the children, the facilitators to the children. The adults, the grown people, having a knowledge of self, having something in their mind, being educated, being refined in their mind, being sovereign in their mind and their spirit are the key to this entire world. It is the adults that run the world, not the children. Therefore, the key is to educate and refine the mind of the adults and to make a knowledge of self the highest priority over, oh, I just want to, damn, shorty bad, I'm trying to kill, damn, I'm just trying to kill. Or you a woman, fucking, I don't want to step into the consciousness of a woman. But yeah, let's continue though. Acquiring a knowledge of self, getting in tune with nature, educating self on the proper diet, one's history, and refining one's mind so that one may be an educator to one's children and not give your children to the enemy to be educated. Most people give their children away to their enemy in order for their enemy to teach their children how to be functioning people, adults. You feel what I'm saying? In reality, if you a parent, if you have a son or a daughter, then in turn, you being the parent are supposed to be the one to educate that son or daughter that you have. But most people, they send their children away mainly because of two reasons. One, they themselves don't really know shit. Or two, they themselves are not in a proper position to educate and take care of their children because they have to go to work 9 to 5 type shit. They got bills to pay and they don't really know anything about money. Therefore, they have to work this job. And you know what I'm saying? TV raising the kids on God. Where do we go from here? We must revolutionize the education system, the healthcare system, the government system, the religion, etc., to fit the truth of reality instead of the manipulated truth that was given to us by those who seek to control us through oppression and subjugation. You feel what I'm saying? Now, this is the last slide in the lecture, and this is the end of the lecture right here. This is the end of the presentation. Now, the way I want to end this presentation is with the words of a great teacher that I had. Although I did not know him personally, he's a man who inspired me a lot on my path. He's a man known as Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad, who was um he was like the main minister person in the Nation of Islam, like how Malcolm X was the main guy. After Malcolm X came Khalid Muhammad, I believe. I think that's how it went. But Khalid Abdul Muhammad, who, like Malcolm X, was also assassinated, whatever. Now, Khalid Muhammad said in a lecture that revolution is the solution, and that if you're a nurse, you should be a revolutionary nurse. If you're a doctor, be a revolutionary doctor. If you're a teacher, be a revolutionary teacher. If you a nigga that work at Subway, be a revolutionary nigga that be making them sandwiches. If you a nigga that work at fucking Dunkin' Donuts, McDonald's, be a revolutionary Dunkin' Donuts, McDonald's worker. Be a revolutionary. If you a person that work at the gym at the front desk, be a revolutionary person that working at that front desk at that gym. You feel what I'm saying? Be that person at work. Be that one coworker at work that be dropping knowledge that everybody know, like, oh shit, is him. That nigga be known. That nigga deep. Like, be that person at work. Be that person in the world. You dig what I'm saying? Be that person. Be the revolutionary person in your mindset that is always looking towards revolution. Revolution is evolution, always looking towards growth, expansion, upward movement, forward movement, progression, no matter where you're at. It don't matter if you flipping burgers or whatever that you're doing. Be a revolutionary nigga flipping them. Nigga, flip them burgers and flip that burger and you got a customer over here. You say, yo, let me get a motherfucking Big Mac, nigga. You like, I got you with the Big Mac. Yo, you ever heard of Malcolm X, bro? You ever heard of Khalid Muhammad? Yo, you know about Kundalini? Nigga, like, what? Nigga, give me my burger. You like, all right, I got you. I got you. No problem. You know what I'm saying? Just mention that shit. Fuck it. You know what I'm saying? Be a revolutionary nigga flipping them burgers. Be a revolutionary. Because it is only the people who have that certain type of mind, the occult mind, the spiritual mind, that leadership mentality, that mentality of revolution and truth, knowledge. It is only the people who have that type of mind who are the ones who truly make a difference in the world. Because if not, then you're leaving people like, what the fuck? What's the girl? What she say in the song? What's the girl? That ugly ass black girl. What she say? She was like, my pussy pink, my booty hole brown. Like, you leave it. If you don't be a revolutionary and you don't pick yourself up and start to be a leader, then you leaving the world to niggas like that. You leaving the world to niggas like that, bruh. You leaving the world to niggas like fucking Joe Biden. That's just taking advantage of shit. That's just perpetuating a system of fucking slavery, nigga. You yourself are the leader. You yourself are the power. The reason that we don't need leaders is because each and every single one of us is a leader. You dig what I'm saying? Each and every single one of us is that. We all got something we could bring to the table. We all got some type of knowledge, something that we could do or use or say in order to help to build the mindset, the mentality, the spirituality, the culture of the people, create a form of sovereignty for all people to exist in. You dig what I'm saying? And with that being said, I'm ending this lecture, man. I'm ending the live, and I'm about to head up out of here, man. So, peace be to the gods on earth, man. I'm happy that I did this lecture. I'm happy that I did this whole thing. Uh, this is something I've been wanting to do for a long time, and I'm a best believe I'm gonna be consistent when it comes to me making my content and me dropping these lectures and dropping the knowledge and coming through with it. Because we're the ones, ain't nobody else gonna do this shit, bro. Only people who is gonna do this shit is the people who have the knowledge. And then after that, the only people who don't the people who have the knowledge, the only people out of the people who have the knowledge, who's gonna do the work, the only people out of the people who have the knowledge who's gonna do the work and lead and be that person and be that power are the people who already have that mindset in their head that, yo, this shit is up to me. Ain't nobody else gonna hold my fucking hand. This shit's up to me. You dig what I'm saying? So that being said, man, peace be to the gods on earth. Peace be to all the people that tuned into the live. Once again, all my people on TikTok, if you want to watch the live replay, whatever, it's gonna be on my YouTube channel forever. So tune into my YouTube channel, J Benz the Light, same name, J Benz the Light. And all that being said, man, peace to the gods on earth, J Benz the Light, to Hootie Jah. I'm out of here, man. I'm good. You dig?